You can feel the urgency even if the headlines don't scream it. Every contending team needs a plan at left tackle because elite seasons and bodies were down. The 49ers are in that position where Trent Williams is still elite, but you also can't ignore the eventual handoff. So today we're breaking down 3 realistic prospects the Niners could target at pick 27, Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, Caleb Lomu out of Utah, and Max Ahannacher out of Arizona State. And starting with the guy who has a lot of tape and a lot of traits you'll hear scouts talk about, Monroe Freeling. I'll walk you through what he does well, where he raises red flags, and whether he's a fit for San Francisco's offense or just a flashy name that won't make it to 27. If you're into deep, honest draft analysis for the Niners, subscribe and hit the bell now so you don't miss the follow-ups and mock scenarios coming in chapters 2 and 3. Quick show of hands in the comments. Would you rather the Niners use 27 on an offensive tackle or flip the pick to add more picks? Drop tackle or trade below. I read every single reply. Monroe Freeling is the prototype tall tackle -6'7", roughly 315, long arms, the kind of frame that immediately excites teams drafting on day 1. On tape you see the length, the reach blocks, the long stratter pass set that keeps rushers from getting into the quarterback easily. He's comfortable on the move, handles angle blocks, and projects well in pass protection because his pass sets are clean and consistent, but the tape also shows a recurring theme. His handling of speed rushers can be inconsistent. There are snaps where edge speed gets underneath him and he gets nudged back or has to reset, and that inconsistency in handling quicker, bendier pass rushers is the one negative that scouts keep flagging. He's not a mauler in the run game either. He walls guys off, gets to his spot, and sustains blocks, but he doesn't consistently bury defenders and dominate the line of scrimmage the way old-school nasty tackles sometimes do. That's not a fatal flaw, it's a stylistic one. For the 49ers, who run a lot of zone concepts and need mobile linemen who can move the pocket and get to second level, Freeling's length and movement are attractive. The problem, the 49ers often prefer multi-tool prospects who can kick inside if needed. Freeling's linear, long frame makes him less likely to be an ideal guard for a year of seasoning, and if the club wants a swing tackle-guard combo, they might look elsewhere. So what would drafting Freeling at 27 look like? If he falls that far, and that's a big if because he projects to go earlier by some boards, the Niners would be looking at a future left tackle with day 1 to year to developmental needs. You'd likely see him start as a swing tackle or as a backup who rotates in on obvious passing downs while he adds weight and strength. In the Niners scheme, he'd be taught to use quick hands, keep his pad level, and rely on angles rather than raw bull rush power. The upside is obvious. If his inconsistent handling of speed gets cleaned up in the pros, you have a long, prototypical left tackle who fits adjacent to a tackle-friendly scheme. The risk is also obvious. If he never quite adjusts to the NFL's speed and power mix, he becomes a classic first-round projection who needs a lot of work. Useful, but not the neat plug-and-play solution San Francisco sometimes prefers. Before I get into the other two, guys, I want to hear from you. Do you think Freeling's length and pass chops outweigh his issues with speed? Quick yes, no in the chat. Yes, take him or no, pass. Also, if you've got a minute and you want to help the channel reach a milestone, we're chasing 2,000 subscribers to unlock more production upgrades and better breakdowns for the faithful. If you can, hit subscribe, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, use super thanks or hype. It's not a donation, it's fuel for this quest for the next Super Bowl trophy, and it helps us improve footage, graphics, and the breakdowns you love. I'll keep this mid-roll short and high energy so we don't lose momentum. Your support helps us bring better film clips, longer cut-ups, and deeper interviews. It literally helps us chase the trophy together. Thanks, that 15 to 30 seconds of help goes a long way. Now, coming up next, I'll take you inside Caleb Lomu's film, the calm, technical prospect who might be more NFL ready than his size suggests. and we'll weigh whether he's the kind of player the 49ers can plug in sooner rather than later. When you turn on Caleb Lomu's tape, the first thing you notice isn't overwhelming power or flashy highlight pancakes. It's how calm he looks, and that matters more than you think. Because when you're projecting offensive linemen from college to the NFL, especially for a team like the 49ers that demands precision in pass protection and movement in the run game, composure is everything. Lomu doesn't play like a young player. He plays like someone who understands leverage, angles, and timing, and that's rare for a redshirt sophomore. He's listed around 6'6" and just over 300 pounds, and you can see that leaner build compared to someone like Ahannacher. But what jumps out is how clean his pass sets are. His feet are smooth, he's patient. He doesn't panic when defenders throw counters at him. You'll see him handle stunts with ease, passing off rushers, resetting his base, keeping his shoulders square. That's not common for someone this young. There's a level of mental processing there that translates. And for a 49ers team that has to deal with complex defensive fronts in the NFC, that intelligence becomes valuable immediately. Now, let's be real, he's not a mauler either. You're not drafting Lomu because he's going to displace defensive ends 5 yards downfield. In the run game, he's more of a get-to-your-spot and seal player than a bulldozer, but there are flashes where his hand strength pops. There are reps where he latches on and just turns a defender to the ground with control. It's not nasty, it's technical, and sometimes that's even more sustainable at the next level. What really intrigues me with Lomu is projection. He improved noticeably from one season to the next. The balance issues, overextending, lunging at times, were there early, but you see growth. And when a player is trending upward like that before he even hits his physical peak, that's when you start thinking about ceiling. Because if he adds 10 pounds of functional strength without losing quickness, you might be looking at a very complete tackle prospect. Here's where it gets interesting for the 49ers specifically. Of the 3 prospects we're talking about, Lomu might actually have the best chance to survive a year at guard if needed. His frame is a little more compact than Freeling's. He doesn't look as narrow. He's not 6'7" with that ultra-linear build. If the Niners wanted to draft a tackle at 27 but still fill a short-term interior need, Lomu might be the cleanest projection for that transition. He's not a natural masher, but he's controlled, technically sound, and strong enough in his base to avoid getting walked back. And that's the real draft dilemma, right? Because at 27, you're not getting the flawless top 10 offensive tackle. You're getting someone with a question mark. Freeling's question is speed consistency. Lomu's question is physical dominance. Can he anchor against an NFL power every snap? Can he add that finishing edge, or is he always going to be a finesse-leaning player? Those are the things teams will weigh heavily. Now I want your take on this. Which matters more to you at 27, raw power or refined technique? If you had to choose, are you betting on strength that needs polish or polish that needs strength? Drop your answer in the comments and explain why. I'm genuinely curious how you see this, because this is one of those philosophical draft debates that splits fan bases. And if you're enjoying this kind of detailed breakdown, not just surface-level highlights, but real projection talk, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps grow this into the go-to-draft space for the faithful. If you want to take it a step further, using super thanks or hype directly fuels better production quality, more film study access, and deeper breakdowns. It's about building this community into something that matches the standard of the franchise we cover. Back to Lomu, one thing that stood out watching multiple games was how easy things looked for him. That's not to say he didn't get beat occasionally. Every college tackle does, but there's a smoothness to his game. He doesn't look rushed. He doesn't look frantic. He looks like the moment isn't too big, and when you project into playoff football, into big moments, into 3rd and long against elite pass rushers, that calm demeanor becomes a real asset. But here's the draft reality. If he shows up at the combine weighing in strong, with good arm length, and moves the way the tape suggests, he might not even be there at 27. Pass protecting left tackles with youth and growth trajectory climb boards quickly. And if he goes earlier, that leaves the 49ers staring at a different kind of decision, maybe even the most fascinating prospect of the three, because next, we're talking about the thick, powerful, 5 years of football lonely Max Ahannacher, the guy who looks like he was built in a lab to play guard but has tackle length and upside. And the draft strategy conversation changes when you factor in ceiling versus readiness. Now let's talk about the most fascinating projection of the three, Max Ahannacher. Because if Freeling looks like a prototype tackle and Lomu looks like a polished technician, Ahannacher looks like he was built to play inside on. Sundays from day one, he's around 6'5.5", roughly 325 pounds, and he carries it differently than the other two. He's thick through the hips and lower body. He looks powerful just standing there. And when the ball is snapped, you see that density translate. He gets off the ball with force. His anchor is naturally strong. When defenders try to convert speed to power, he's not the one getting knocked backward. He absorbs it. That's a trait the 49ers haven't consistently had inside. But here's where it gets really interesting. He's only been playing football for about 5 years. Grew up playing soccer, played basketball in high school. Didn't even have a football program early on. That background explains a lot. It explains the foot coordination. It explains the flashes of body control, and it also explains why his hand usage can look raw at times. His hands can get wide, his punch timing isn't always consistent. The technique isn't as refined as Freeling or Lomu. So what you're looking at with the Ahannacher is upside plus power, not polish plus projection. He's not as fluid moving laterally in space as Lomu. He's not as naturally smooth in his pass sets as Freeling. But when you're evaluating what the 49ers might actually need, you have to think about timeline and role. If the Niners want someone who could potentially start at guard immediately while developing as a tackle long-term, Ahannacher might make the most sense. You can line him up inside, let him play. With that natural anchor, simplify his responsibilities early, and let offensive line coaches refine his hand placement and timing. Meanwhile, you're grooming him for tackle snaps down the line if he grows into it. That flexibility is valuable. The other factor is draft positioning. Freeling and Lomu both feel like players who could be gone before 27 depending on how the board falls. Ahannacher, because of the raw elements in his game, might realistically be there or even be a trade down. Target early in round 2, and if you're San Francisco, balancing immediate needs with long-term planning, that becomes a strategic question. So here's the big picture comparison for you. Freeling, prototypical left tackle frame, good pass protector, some inconsistency versus speed, probably less guard flexibility. Lomu, calm, technical, young, trending upward, potentially the most balanced overall prospect, might offer some interior flexibility. Ahannacher, thick, powerful, raw hands, limited. Football experience, possibly the highest ceiling if developed properly, likely the most guard-ready body type. Now, I want you to commit. If you're running the draft room and pick 27 comes up, who are you taking? Type one name in the comments: Freeling, Lomu, Ahannacher, or type trade down if you'd rather move back and stack picks. And give me one sentence explaining why. I want to see how the faithful thinks about long-term roster building. Because this is really about philosophy. Do you prioritize ceiling? Do you prioritize refinement? Or do you prioritize flexibility? The 49ers have historically leaned toward trades and development at certain positions, but offensive line has often been approached differently. If this is the year they invest early, it needs to be the right profile. And before we close this out, if you've made it this far, you're exactly the type of viewer who makes this community special. Help us push toward 2,000 subscribers. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. And if you want to directly support better film access, better graphics, and deeper draft coverage, use Super Thanks or Hype. That support isn't about donations. It's about fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy and raising the level of content for everyone in this community. This draft could quietly shape the next 5 to 7 years of the offensive line. Whether the 49ers act now or wait another year, the decision at tackle is coming. The question is whether they get ahead of it or let it catch up to them.